President of Portland Community College. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining us at the PCC Cascade campus for this important conversation on the state of education. We are truly honored to host you at one of Portland Community College's 4 campuses and 10 centers. I want to recognize Rep. Nguyen, Dr. Williams, as well as Bobby Reagan, and all of our esteemed guests here for your partnership and commitment to education. Here at PCC, we focus on equity, access, education, training, and resources needed for students to attain good-paying jobs that meet the needs of employers. As a community college and the largest post-secondary institution in the state, we stand at a pivotal moment in education as we navigate the complexities, the challenges, the opportunities, and uncertainties in this educational landscape. Events like these remind us of the collective strength and transformation that arises to move us forward and move the needle ahead in the realm of education in the state of Oregon. To our esteemed guests, community members, families, friends, your presence here signifies a shared commitment to advancing education and making a positive impact on the lives of our students and our community at large. And I want to say thank you again for being here, and welcome to the City Club State of Education Address.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Dennis, for that warm welcome and for all you do to support Portland's young people. I'm Bobby Reagan, a Portland City Club board member, co-chair of the City Club's Programming Committee, and producer of today's program. As a parent and former longtime PPS school board member, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's State of Education program featuring Dr. Charlene Williams, Director of the Oregon Department of Education. Before we begin, I ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. For more than 100 years, Portland City Club has hosted public forums, debates, and research to help Portlanders make informed decisions around elections and public policy. City Club is committed to providing space for people to gather and engage in civic dialogue. Members make City Club run by providing ideas, leading conversations, doing research, and creating our City Club community. To volunteer for our programming committee, research board, and issue committee, or our membership committee, please become a member today. Visit pdxcityclub.org/membership and let us know how you would like to engage. We welcome you to our public square and thank you for your support now and into the future. Thanks to Sam Metz, co-chair of the City Club's Programming Committee, for helping to produce this event. And thanks also to Kayla Kennett, our marketing manager, for her help as well. Tonight's program wraps up City Club's spring programming season. We anticipate doing a few events this summer related to Portland City Council elections, which take place this November. We will also present the results of a City Club research report in late August. In the fall, we plan to conduct several debates related to congressional, state, county, and city candidate elections, as well as possible ballot measures. If you're interested again in joining the programming committee to help with any of these events, we encourage you to talk with Sam and me today, or send an email to info@cityclub.org. For today's program, Oregon Director of Education, Dr. Charlene Williams, will offer some remarks. She will then join Representative Hoa Nguyen on stage for a follow-up conversation. Representative Hoa Nguyen is a first-term Oregon State legislator representing East Portland and Damascus. She is also a David Douglas school board member and the daughter of Vietnamese refugees. She has spent 20 years as a bilingual, bicultural educator and currently works as a student and community engagement specialist for the Clackamas Education Service District, addressing chronic absenteeism and its underlying causes among underserved students. It is now my great honor to share some background information on our featured speaker. Oregon Director of Education, Dr. Charlene Williams. Charlene was appointed as Director of the Oregon Department of Education in September 2023, that's less than a year ago. Prior to this, she served as Deputy Superintendent of Evergreen Public Schools and Assistant Superintendent for the Camas School District. In her Camas role, she won the Washington Association of School Administrators Award for promoting equity, access, and social justice for students. Closer to home, Charlene was principal at Portland's Roosevelt High School and facilitated a collaborative grant writing process resulting in a $7.7 million investment to close the achievement gap and increase graduation rates. She then served as PPS Senior Director of School Performance, where, working with the Portland Association of Teachers, she helped redesign the teacher evaluation system. When Charlene first arrived in the Pacific Northwest in 1999, she taught here at Portland Community College. And she then became a program coordinator and curriculum developer. She also served as the Director of Education and later the principal of Rosemary Anderson High School. Please join me in welcoming Oregon Director of Education, Dr. Charlene Williams.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Good evening, Portland City Club. Thank you so much, Bobby Regan. It's a pleasure to be back on this campus again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts about Oregon's education system today. And I offer my vision of the future where every student is seen, valued, and supported and held to a high academic standard. First, a little bit about myself for those of you who may not know me. I have dedicated my life to education because I've seen firsthand how a positive student-teacher relationship can set a child up for success, because I am a product of such a relationship. Later this month will mark 1 year since Governor Kotek appointed me to the position as the Director of the Oregon Department of Education. And I said at that time that first and foremost, my goal will be to support students in every corner of the state so that they have the same chance to succeed. And it's an honor to be back here on in this campus in this capacity. I've had the privilege of being a PCC employee, fostering PCC partnerships from my role at Rosemary Anderson High School to my role at Roosevelt High School, and as a senior director, Portland Community College has always answered yes. And we have always sought pathways for higher student achievement. So thank you, President Bennings, for your leadership. I know there are a lot of familiar faces in the room, and I hope I don't miss anybody because I don't want to get in trouble when you start acknowledging people. But my family is here, so if you're part of my family, would you stand on beautiful my pastors are here, Pastor Herman and Knight. There are colleagues and educators that I've had the privilege and honor of working with over the years. I can't even begin to name you. I've seen your faces in the room. Thank you for coming and your interest in the state of public education. I will share a bit of the state of education from my perspective, but I want to also yield some of my time to students who can share their perspective on the state of education as well. So you want to know a little bit about the state of education in Oregon. We have the privilege of serving over 550,000 students in our public schools. They come from all walks of life. 64% of our students are considered economically disadvantaged. Another 4% experiencing homelessness. And we have a beautiful array of races, cultures, and ethnicity with hundreds of languages spoken by our students and families. Oregon is a beautiful quilt of schools and districts from the Pacific Ocean shoreline over the Cascade Mountains to the prairies of Eastern Oregon. And this includes 197 school districts and 131 charter schools. Our academic outcomes are not where they should be. We must do better by our scholars. But as I travel the state, I see education communities experiencing successes and grappling with many challenges. So when we think about the state of education, many images and headlines come to mind. Funding, Oregon lagging behind in attendance and academics, concerns about student well-being. And yes, there are challenges we must address as a community. These solutions require partnership from the classroom to the boardroom to the legislative assembly. We must be all in order to address these complex and persistent issues that plague education. But I'd also like to add that there's another side to the story. There are so many things to celebrate about what is going right in our schools and our classrooms. Our educators are resilient and are finding ways to move the dial on student experiences and outcomes. These headlines amplify what we have known all along. We need multiple measures of success. Teen volunteers. Here we have students who have engaged in leading and supporting other students while addressing mental health issues. There are so many important things we need to do in our schools, and there are so many important things happening in just this one headline. Their leadership, their compassion, they're addressing mental health issues. Ethnic studies. What I am finding as I go around the state and talk to other students, our students are showing up and showing us how to have civil discourse on important topics and difficult issues. These skills are part of what we need for our students to thrive in a global community as they work in our culture and society. Historic reading investment. I would be remiss if I didn't celebrate the fact that we have 230 school districts and charter schools fully invested in our early literacy initiative. I had a superintendent say this was the first time that every district was all in on a particular strategy to move student achievement, and that is to be celebrated. School districts are getting approval to serve free meals to each and every student. What a blessing to not have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. And did someone say joy? How are we measuring joy in schools? Oh, there's so much love and excitement happening. This was given to me courtesy of Superintendent of Salem Kaiser Schools. And we also celebrate our Teacher of the Year, Mandy Vance, because again, there are educators who are not being recognized, but are giving their all every day for the success and support of our students. And earlier this week, I had the privilege of giving an award to Rafael Pelaez at North Marion School in Aurora. They declared Rafael Pelaez Day because of his contributions. And he was completely surprised when we partnered with the Oregon Lottery and named him as the Educator Support Professional of the Year. Thunderous applause, thunderous gratitude. And here's our current reality. Just a reminder, I want to thank, first and foremost, our Oregon legislators who approved the Student Success Act that infuses more dollars into our school system. However, we know something happened in 2020. There was a major disruption to our system that destabilized all intentions and efforts of resources that were currently in the system. Fortunately, our federal government stepped up and provided a series of relief dollars to support our schools. But as you know, the pandemic repainted the face and the landscape, of education. And so we saw decreases in enrollment in many of our districts. We saw increases in student and staff needs. And now we are seeing the decline of that infusion of dollars that was so needed to stabilize our system. And so I thank everybody who has been on board, leaning in, trying to support our students in schools. So what are we doing about all of this? Together, in partnership with our families, community-based organizations, workforce, tribes, legislators, we must create the conditions for student success. We have to address the funding needs, reduce administrative burden, and remove silos that prevent us from working coherently and efficiently across our systems. We must answer hard questions. How do we streamline and assure that we are spending on high-quality resources and utilizing best practices? Are we using the right methodology? How do we allocate resources and more? The bullets on this slide represent discussion tables, and they are representative of the momentum that is building to support our schools and answer some of the complex questions about funding and supporting our workforce. Our elected leaders and others notice there are long-standing issues that were amplified during the pandemic. We are at an inflection point, and we have the opportunity to take our efforts to the next level. These discussions include combinations of state leadership from the governor's office, legislators, Department of Education, labor leaders, and more. We must be all in. It is essential that we are aligned around the promising practices that will move us forward. But why are we really here? There is no way to do this work without centering our students. It is imperative that as we design our systems and we look for ways moving forward, that we center the voices of our students, of our families. And I want to hopefully model that today and yield some of my time to some students that have bravely decided to show up and give us their perspective today. I want to thank staff members from Reynolds School District, Gustavo Olvera and Dee Archie, who helped facilitate conversations and roundtables with the Department of Education around the state of education. In just a moment, we're going to ask Giovanni Vaz, a senior ASB president and National Honor Society graduating from Reynolds High School, to join me. And then Jorge Cruz Hernandez, a freshman, almost a sophomore, who plays volleyball and is in student government at Reynolds High School. But before I bring them up, I just want to say, thankful for my team, Michelle, who's in the back, Rochelle. We can't do this work without teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. And all of these apples represent places I've been able to communicate with students, either in person or virtually across the state, asking them what they need in terms of the state of education. And so I just want to ask our students to give us a moment of their time to highlight what's important to them. So I'm going to ask Giovanni, would you join me on stage? Once again, yes, let's give it up for Giovanni.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Dr. Williams, and thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight with so many distinguished guests. My name is Giovanni. I am currently a senior at Reynolds High School, at least for a couple more days. Being a senior means that I've been around the school for the longest, and it also means I've been able to see all the great ways our school has improved over the last 4 years, but it also means I've heard the most complaints. Both are equally important when we begin conversations about what needs to be changed in our schools, and that's why I wanted to share some of them with you tonight. Now, we do have a lot to celebrate in our schools. At Reynolds, being one of the largest schools in the state means we can offer a plethora of programs and advanced courses to our students, from woodshop to metals to automotive to early childhood education. There's truly something for everyone. Also, in addition to our many advanced placement courses, students are able to push themselves with some of the highest levels of academic rigor. Many students would agree with me that these programs are part of what makes our schools so great. But let's talk about what's not going great for a second. Because as amazing as our programs are, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that every Oregonian student, regardless of their background or where they're from, is able to receive a world-class education. One issue we face is the way some teachers interact with students of different races. Reynolds remains one of the most diverse high schools in the entire state, yet you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at the demographics of our faculty. It is this lack of representation that often leads, to misunderstanding between staff and students on different ethnic backgrounds. We need better trainings to help teachers communicate more effectively with all of our students. And in addition, we need to start focusing on programs like Build Your Own to ensure the makeup of our faculties best reflects the students that we're trying to serve, because believe me, it matters. Thank you. Additionally, staff members need to be more understanding of students outside of committees to their families, or commitments to their families, because life happens, and we need to be ready to support those juggling both school and family responsibilities. We need to do a better job of creating and promoting resources for our students and making sure they're easily accessible to everyone. There is also a concerning trend of students not trying academically anymore. This mindset is fueled by some teachers making their students feel inadequate academically. And yes, it does happen. No, it is not everyone. And yes, it is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you. Education is meant to uplift, not tear down. And it is because of instances like these that all students should have access to school counselors and social workers so that they too can have a safe place to turn whenever an issue may arise. Now, all of these things have one thing in common. They require money. Financial support from state and federal governments is crucial in providing resources to both students and staff. In addition to providing more activities and programs for our kids, proper funding would allow our amazing teachers all the resources they need to provide a well-rounded and world-class education. And all of this change starts with you, our lawmakers. You have the power to ensure that every student in Oregon has the opportunity to thrive. I want to thank you for your time tonight, and I want to give a special thanks to the Oregon Department of Education for inviting us to come speak. And together, let's continue to work to create a brighter future for all of our students. Thank you.
I don't even need to speak into the mic. We just need to hand it over to our students, apparently. And at this time, I would like to ask Jorge Cruz to come and join us and give us his remarks as well.
Good evening, everyone. And again, my name's Jorge Cruz. And I want to thank you all for letting me have the opportunity to speak for my peers, because I think it's important that student voice is prioritized. To start, I want to talk about what's going well for students. I think some things that are going well at Reynolds High School are teachers wanting to show our students that they care, as well as teachers doing a good job of showing students that they want us to succeed, which makes students feel empowered. Another thing is our administration being involved with their students. I feel like when students see adults in the building that care and that are there for them, it makes them feel more comfortable. I've heard from many students that they feel like our counselors are reaching out and checking in with them more, which I think is great, so students feel like they are supported and cared for. Just showing up and being there has been great this year, in my opinion. Now I'm going to move on to what's not going as well for students. I think one thing that I can think of right now is cell phones. I've noticed a lot that students are not paying attention in classes and are on their phones. But it's difficult going to school wanting to learn, but then see my teachers frustrated because everyone's on their phones. The other day I was speaking to my language arts teacher, and he was telling me how it was very difficult for him to teach his students when they're just sitting there on their phones. In my opinion, this is happening because students are not seeing the value or understanding why we're learning a particular topic. And that is why students are not engaged. Another issue is that our teachers are having a rough time understanding our students. Working at a school like Reynolds High School is honestly a pretty difficult thing to do, so I'm thankful for the teachers that are there. However, some teachers struggle understanding our students because we have teachers because we have students from many different backgrounds and that go through many different issues. Something that can help with that is having more teachers that look like me, that can understand me, because as much as our white teachers try, they will never fully understand me. I feel like having more educators of color would help our students feel more represented. Finally, there are 2 recommendations that I have that would help create a better education experience for students. The first recommendation I have is that classes need to be more interactive. In other words, more hands-on learning. I've had teachers that have tried to have more hands-on activities in their classes, but in order to do that, they have had to go out and use their own money to buy these tools to teach these hands-on activities, which I honestly find disturbing, because isn't our district funding this? Why do my teachers have to go and spend money out of their pockets to buy materials to teach their classes? I see my teachers trying to be more interactive, but they do not have the resources. The second recommendation is that for the teachers to create better relationships with students is, I think, to learn how to communicate with their students is by taking classes that would consist of teaching educators how to interact with students that have different learning styles, cultures, and backgrounds. I don't have the power to change all of these things, but I will use my voice to stand up for my peers. So please use your power to improve school experience for Oregon students. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Can we just give it up for them one more time? And so, as you've heard in their speeches, as well as when we've gone around the state, our students are saying they appreciate our educators, especially when there's care and connection and support. They love access to rich learning experiences, the care and connection. And then there's still that desire for integration of how do we make it relevant for students and continue that sense of safety and belonging. So no matter your identity, that you feel respected and supported by your school. And another theme was around more rigorous access to courses. So I'm just really appreciative of the grace that our students have given us in terms of articulating their voices. So what are we doing with this information? At the Oregon Department of Education in my first year, we've narrowed our focus down to these key priorities. Our prime directive, goal number 1, of course, is academic excellence. We want all scholars performing at or above grade level or showing significant growth with no predictable disparities. Our goal number 2 is around belonging and wellness, as you have heard our students articulating. We want to create the conditions for belonging and wellness so students are ready to learn and thrive academically with proper support for their social emotional needs. You know, brain science tells us when cortisol is high, cognition is low. It's hard to think, it's hard to learn. You're in survival mode. You want to make sure you're safe. You're not necessarily wondering how to solve a system of equations. And so we have to tend to that in our classrooms. And goal number 3 is reimagining accountability. I was a principal of Roosevelt High School. We were ranked one of the lowest performing schools in the state, and how that was managed landed hard on our students, our staff, and our community. And it took the collective work of just listening and going out to community to talk about, we know we have high standards for our students. What does it really take to pull the best out of our educators, the best out of our community, and to achieve the goals and desires that we have for our students? So these are our goals and our intention in serving our students in Oregon to address some of the issues that you have raised here today. And I just want to leave or finish this portion of the program is that I continue to have hope. I mean, number 1, if those students did give you hope, I don't know, where you are, but really hopeful based on what I'm seeing in classrooms, what I'm hearing from students, as I'm talking to leaders. We are definitely on a path. It is an exciting time to be in education. There's more nuance to this story, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today with Representative Nguyen, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to have this very important conversation. Talk about being on the spotlight.
There's a spotlight for sure. Checking 1, 2. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Williams. Once again, I'm Representative Hoa Nguyen. I have the honor and privilege of representing House District 48, which represents East Portland and Damascus. So I play many roles in education, what was shared in the intro. So this morning I was in Estacada doing a secretary's training. And then I drove all the way out here to be with all of you and all of you education enthusiasts out there. It's a lot for you to be here on this beautiful Friday afternoon to talk about education, our students, our teachers, and everything around education. So this is a really important topic for us. So thank you all for being here on this lovely afternoon. Let's continue talking about our students. And thank you so much for centering our why, and let's continue doing that. As you have shared earlier, students have been transitioning out of the pandemic, and we know that this has presented new opportunities and challenges. Can you share what support you see for students, especially around mental health and social emotional needs and school safety?
Oh, wow. Thank you for the question. And when we're talking about social emotional health and needs, sometimes there's a tendency to go right to the solution. You know, if someone's presenting a need in mental health, you know, what are the solutions? Where are the providers? But I truly believe this conversation needs to be a proactive one. How do we create the conditions where students and staff feel safe, feel that sense of belonging? So one of the things that we do at the Oregon Department of Education is at the beginning of the year, we launch a series called Care and Connection. Because if we can start early and often letting people know the tools, the resources, the points of approach when we're dealing with our students and families ahead of time, ahead of issues, it's going to make it a lot easier and reduce the need in some instances for services beyond the classroom. So how do you create a safe and welcoming classroom with routines and strategies? How do people know where to find resources in their building or in their community? Proactively making calls to families. One of the fun things we did at Roosevelt was we suspended a staff meeting, and we had every staff member call. We made sure that every student in the school received a positive phone call within the first week of school. So-and-so's in my class, we love this about so-and-so, right? Like, they were amazing. And what the reaction from that told us as a community, our students and families need more of that. How can we proactively engage them? But we also need to bring resources to the table. Right? We need to build partnerships with our mental health agencies and providers so they can come into our schools without a lot of barrier and rigmarole and actually help deliver services that we as educators haven't been trained to do. And so how do we remove those walls and make sure that we can set that up? One of the demonstration projects we have going on is called Community Care Demonstration Project. And we literally have a liaison planted in schools who actually serves as the connector. And we need more connectors so that we can provide resources.
That's super important, thank you. And it's so great to hear that you're centering students and you're our director at the state level. So that's a super connection to make sure that we stay grounded in our why, and that's very important. I have a couple of audience questions I would like to present as we're still continuing to talk about our students. One of the audience questions, thank you for those who submitted questions in the RSVP. One of the first question is, how are Black and brown girls doing in our state education for discipline?
I love this question. in part because, and I actually have some statistics that I can provide later as part of the resources we email out. But one thing I do want to say is we continue to experience a disproportionality in our discipline. In every category, our males are at least double the referrals, no matter whether you're looking at whichever racial group that you're looking at. And when it comes to our girls, which this question talks about, our Black and brown girls are at the top in terms of disproportionality. And so that is something we're going to need to continue to work on and address, because I think we heard our students earlier say our teachers need more support, our leaders need more support with how do we engage our students from different backgrounds. And I just go back to how do we create the conditions in the beginning so students know that they belong, they're cared for, and that teachers really understand how to really engage them in a culturally responsive way.
Yes, thank you for answering that tough question. And discipline obviously continues to be an issue in our schools, as we heard directly from some of our students, and not feeling connected to their teachers and wanting more teachers that look like them. So that's super important, and that's a great conversation, a great question. So thank you for whoever submitted that question. And we talked about mental health post-COVID. There's just been an increase of mental health needs for all of our students in many ways. I think beyond the capacity, I believe our staff, our teachers are able to provide. And so this is a new thing that we're dealing with, even for myself, working in education for a long time. I felt like, wow, this is something I've never encountered before as we talk about cell phones and those impacts. Another question from the audience around mental health is, how is Oregon Department of Education partnering with Oregon Health Authority to support students' mental health?
I love this question as well because we actually share a staff member. Again, back to the idea that we are educators and more needs are showing up in our classrooms that teachers need support with. Needs are showing up in our schools and our communities, and it really takes that intentional partnership. And so we have layers of staff that are meeting around various topics. Actually, they support the community care demonstration site, for example. They help connect schools and districts to resources in their community, their health resources in their community. And I would also say there's more we can do to partner more effectively. Yeah.
So let's continue talking about this mental health. And I believe you have a video to share. Is that?
Oh, yeah, we have a couple more students. So as I've gone around the state, we have our local students from Reynolds, and we have a couple students from, I believe, Malheur County, Allen is from, and Wes, who's from Southern Oregon, Ben Lapine. So if those videos are available.
Let's continue
Centering students.
centering our students. Yeah. We can never do enough of that. I think we need to continue doing this whole segment on students.
My name is Alan Jason Mack. I'm from Eagle Point High School, representing Southern Oregon. I'm about to graduate. What's going well with classes here at Eagle Point? And I believe a big factor of what's going well is CTE classes and FFA classes. They do an incredible job here at Eagle Point. Those are incredibly useful skills that they take into their lives, and they just learn that trade. It's super useful. And so what else is going well? So that's the college program we have here at the school. That college program sets us up for success. We have a dual credit program and a program where we can go to a community college near us. And so doing those programs are essential for building on to your post-high school education. And so having the opportunity is incredibly useful. I mean, I've used it. I have like 16 credits already from just one school. It's good at setting up kids for success. So what is not going well? So one of the bigger things that I've noticed is that we have a lack of time for affinity groups. And so the affinity groups don't have a time or space to actually practice what they're trying to preach and what they're trying to build a community around, because it's all in the teacher's time and all the teachers' prep work, when they have like things they need to do on top of that. We don't have a space or time that's given to us by the school to actually go more in depth with club activities like that, which is a shame, and I believe that could be fixed. Another thing that needs to be fixed, in my opinion, that's not really going well, is the engagement in classes. So there's not a lot of engagement in classes when it comes to things like math, not a lot of project work, not a lot of like actual topics that like get students active and working on it, because that's how we retain memory the best. So how do we fix these issues here? So my first thing is that we need more elective options for the schools, that things that like relate to the trade work or more college opportunities that are given to us, because those are important for students to find their interest and discover like what's them. So having those opportunities, especially for the smaller schools, I emphasize getting those electives there and working with the colleges around the high schools to just get that education in the high schools to start out with for freshmen to build their educational career on. And one of the other things that I feel like we could do is just build that teacher and student relationship starting from the middle school. I believe that's like the root of most problems, that lack of relationships. Students go outside of the schools to find it because it's just not there in the middle school. And when they have to go out, they get that mentorship, that guidance from the internet and bad influences. And overall, that's just not a good thing. I mean, we could see the effects from it looking at the later years of students coming into freshmen. I mean, it's just terrible because they're getting influence from outside sources instead of the actual schools. So establishing a teacher and student relationship starting from the middle schools is how things start to get fixed. That's the biggest root problem in my opinion and from what I've seen. And I've seen the effects of having a good one. So please fix that. My name is Alan Jason Mack. I'm from Eagle Point High School. So thank you again.
All right, I heard you. We'll fix it right away. Let's do it right now. Well, thank you. I think what I heard is our students have a lot to say. There's one more, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes, sorry.
I'm Wes McGovern, and what I think is going well is I think all of our schools, my school especially, do a really great job of providing opportunity and options. If you're into sports, we have a lot of sports. If you're into theater, more athletic-based activities, we have a lot of options. We have a pretty diverse curriculum, so you can take different courses, and we have a lot of CTE courses. So I think that that's going well, that we give students choice, and I think that that's something that I would like to see all around the state. And from what I've heard, it does happen to a degree. I think my answer to the question, what can we do to make sure that students have a world-class education in Oregon, kind of comes back to what I think we're not seeing. And I think what we're not seeing is a lot of support for teachers. I think that we all know that teachers feel burnt out. We know that there's a lot of turnover, that we're having trouble hiring across the state. And I really do think that a lot of it starts with teachers. So I think it starts with asking teachers what they need, why they feel burnt out, things like exit interviews, really trying to figure out what went wrong, what killed that passion that they had for teaching in the first place. I think that if we can start there, we can get teachers who then feel supported by administration. We can have the higher ups in the school district ensure that the administrators at each high school are reaching out to teachers to know that they have their backs. Because I think a lot of teachers just feel overwhelmed and that they're all alone. They can't deal with behavior issues, or they can't deal with students not coming to class. And then it burns them out. And like I said earlier, I think it's a two-way street. And I think if we can really start with retaining teachers, making sure that teachers are comfortable and feel heard, we can then really start learning, because I don't think any learning happens in the classroom when the teacher's not all there. I think once the teacher's there, the students feel more engaged, they're more likely to come to class, we see less chronic absenteeism. And I think that it really is a direct relationship. And I think that we spend so much time focusing on what do students need, which is super important, but I think students need teachers to learn from, students need teachers to look up to. And I think that that all starts with, what do the teachers need? And I think what we can do to ensure that we have a world-class education is build off the resources we have, realize that we do have great teachers, but they need to be able to be empowered to be as great as they really are. And I think that that's a problem that's happening at every single school across the state.
Well, thank you, Dr. Williams, for organizing all that. I want to make sure that we share that, because I know the students worked really hard to share their thoughts, and I want to make sure that they get the platform and that we hear them directly. So thank you so much for that. So personal, a little personal, sounds like this is more of a homecoming for you, being here at the PCC Cascade campus. So before we were both statewide educational leaders, I remembered I first knew about you when you were a principal at Roosevelt High School. And I was a school attendance coach in Portland Public School. And shout out to some of my former colleagues in the audience. Thanks for showing up to support. So I remembered hearing, as we were trying to roll out attendance initiatives, and one of the initiative was to create an attendance team at each of the schools, and Roosevelt at that time was prioritized because of the data. And I have learned that you had one of the most functioning school attendance team at that time when you were a principal. Wow.
You can tell my family is here.
I mean, there's a lot of people that support you too.
Yes,
So.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Can you dive deep, just go back in time and memory lane and share what are some of the strategies as a principal at that time did you use to increase the outcomes in a very good direction for Roosevelt High School in terms of graduation rates, attendance, everything?
Wow. I knew this question was coming, and I'm still emotional. It was a pivotal moment in terms of my learning and growth as an educator. And so first and foremost, I just want to kind of give a little bit brief context. I think, people understood in the room that Roosevelt was one of the lowest ranking schools at the time. It had already gone through various iterations of reform. And I remember sitting in a room in my office. I had invited some teachers down to explain to them that Roosevelt needs to make a decision. We are faced with this opportunity around transformation based on our ranking. And it could require, a transformation or overhaul that will have big impact. And, the options at that time were closure, turnaround, transformation, or some type of reconstitution. So when you're looking at the possibility of losing staff or doing drastic changes to a school, this was at least a third or fourth iteration of change that some of these staff experienced. And I remember these teachers started sharing their stories, especially ones who had been there a while. And they talked about how, one teacher in particular had been there for 20 years. And she said, I have been through 40 administrators, right? And so you can understand the tears and the pain around, here we go again. And when will it stop? And when will we actually truly see change and growth and that kind of thing? And so anything that I was able to do wasn't an I, it was a we. It was those teachers, and I'm just gonna call out my pastors because I first met them honestly through the work in the community. I knew the grant gave us some flexibility, and I said, I need a family engagement coordinator. And we got to get in our community and find out how to get our people to believe in Roosevelt again and come back to our school. Our enrollment was dwindling, and just our attendance was down, all of those things. And so through our campaign to just really tell the truth about what was happening at Roosevelt, but to invite partnership, to invite critique, to invite co-creation, like we're in this together. And from that birthed Roosevelt on the Rise. It birthed all kinds of community partnerships. I asked for weird positions like, I need my own data coordinator because I don't want to lose not one child. Every data represents a kid. And so, then that I believe has now spread through the schools because it's like, if we can keep an eye on the prize, that's how we're going to make sure we meet our goals. And so before we even had an attendance team, any and everybody that wasn't attached to a classroom, I said, okay, we're going to meet in a heritage room. And they're like, what does she want? What does she want? Well, if you're not teaching a class right now, you're going to get a caseload of students. And we're going to call them every week to make sure that they're coming to school on time. And if they don't show up, tell them that we miss them. I would sit in the middle of the hallway, the main hall, and I had a stack of attendance sheets. And I would sign, thank you for coming to school. It was so good to see you. And I'd have students that hadn't been in a while saying, I'm going to get one this week. And so it was an all hands on deck approach. And then fortunately, we were able to grow, and with resources and support from the district and hiring people like Katie Parman, who's still there to do attendance work. But it really did, it took humility. I didn't know. anyone who sits here and said, I know exactly how to transform a community, I think we have some good ideas, we got some research, but it really takes engaging the community around what is best for them, not to do to them, but with them.
I love that. And it's in the world, we have to get out of the solutionitis mindset, right? And we have to walk with the community because we're not the experts in everything. We can't be. And so, like, walking alongside a community, I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And it's just been such an honor to cross paths with you again in this space. So thank you so much. And I was so excited when I heard that you were appointed as director, because I'm like, someone I know, and someone how exciting it is to have equity. Like when we heard from Dr. Adrienne Bennings, and then hearing from you and myself, and a panel of women of color leaders, you know, in the state.
Wow. Wow. Humble. Humble.
All right, let's talk about our next exciting topic, school funding.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Well, one of the biggest topics in education is around the school state fund, and it's the topic where we receive the most audience questions. So I had to put this all in one pretty bow tie for you to help us dissect this topic.
Okay.
In reading through all the questions, there is a consensus that the current funding is inadequate, and folks want to know, how will we address this concern as a state, as an agency, and also in the legislature?
This is beautiful because you named a lot of entities, the state, an agency, legislature. So I brought a rundown of all the ways we're having this conversation. So I'm going to list some things to, not for you necessarily to retain, we can again send some materials out afterwards, but to articulate a bit of the complexity of this story, as you know, right? And so we are having a current service level conversation, and that involves the governor's office, it involves the Oregon Department of Education, it involves legislators, it involves CFO, and it's really about what's truly in the system. Are we truly representing what it costs to serve schools as they are? We are having a statewide conversation around educational accountability, which attaches to funding in a way that once we get really clear about our North Star, once we get really clear about our goals and what schools should look like in all of these contexts, then how do we align funding and resources to support that, right? So the accountability piece around here's what we want, here's what it should look like, here's how we resource that, and then when schools and districts are or are not meeting the mark, here's how we support them to get there. So we have the educational accountability framework, we have a financial transparency dashboard that we were awarded some funds to begin to build, because we need to be able to tell the story so it isn't so complex and people don't really know and they just kind of trust the people that they think are smart, that know what they're talking about. We got to stop all that. We have to really make the financial picture and other things really relatable and transparent so people understand and can make high quality decisions. So when you cast your ballot, you know what you're voting for. Sustainable funding for new initiatives. So we have our summer and after school learning work group. The Oregon Department of Education is working in partnership with the governor's office, because there are pieces of funding that kind of happen by grace and by grants sometimes each year, but hasn't been necessarily a consistent mechanism to ensure those things happen consistently. The legislature is actually conducting a study reviewing the funding formula and what it really costs. And, you know, the governor's office and myself are able to enter all of these different conversations to ensure that the dots are all getting connected, that the left hand is aware of what's happening on the right and that kind of thing. We're looking at a study of the quality education model. And of course, to the point of our students that they've articulated so well today, we actually have a task force working on our statewide educator salaries and what it really takes to support our educators. So those are just some of the ways in which we're having conversations and trying to connect the dots so that we can support our schools.
Well, thank you. And as a freshman legislator and a school board member, I'm still learning. The school state fund is the most confusing thing to learn. So it's okay if you didn't catch all that.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so, and I like that you named that we have to make it more accessible and understandable to our everyday folks because we are paying for this.
Yes.
And we need to know where our money is going and to also the accountability piece because we can fund everything we want, but I know that money isn't always the solution to everything. We have
Correct.
to also make sure that our outcomes meet the funding model that we are investing in.
100%, thank you.
All right, and we know that funding is tied to enrollment and absenteeism. So chronic absenteeism has been also a big topic because unfortunately, statistically, Oregon ranks #4 in the nation. We're one of the highest absent rates in the nation. And a lot of that is intersect with a lot of variables around housing, mental health needs, climate, school climate, discipline, and it impacts students who are most underserved, especially our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, our Native American, Alaskan Native students, our Black students, our special education students, our homeless students, all the barriers you can name, these are the reason why kids aren't able to come to school and learn. And so that is something that is a personal project, passion project of mine as a legislator. So I'm currently co-chairing a legislative work group to address that concern and hope to bring in 2025 recommendations. So, a big part of being a legislator I've learned is having to partner with the agency because I can't do anything without you, the Oregon Department of Education. Can you share just some of the current investments that have been made through ODE? Because we have been working on this for quite a while, and I know that Oregon has been leading on a lot of the initiatives for the last decade or so, but the elephant in the room is how come our numbers are still not improving? And why isn't it moving in the direction that we wanted to? And so please share just some of the current investments that have been made through ODE to address chronic absenteeism, and also talk a little about the statewide graduation rates and what do you see moving ahead in 2025 around this topic as a director?
Thank you so much for the question. It's pretty loaded and but very important though. And so again, I just want to underscore what you were saying around the root causes of attendance really need to be addressed. And our team, we have a team called Everyday Matters, and they give us information on what the barriers are that people have identified. And so, there's barriers like illness, family responsibilities that came up. We heard with our students, housing and food insecurity, aversion to attending school because of struggling academically or struggling with behaviorally, and when a student returns to school, it shouldn't be a rolling of the eyes that some of our students have been reported receiving, but the embrace that we know that some of our communities are so good at. School climate issues, anxiety, there's disengagement and barriers. There's some of our students mentioned this before, lack of challenging, culturally responsive instruction, misconceptions. Sometimes students and families don't really understand that how unexcused absences or only missing a couple absences a month, or the shock that comes when they realize, oh, we missed that many days, and just the importance, just understanding that an absence is an absence and it has an impact on student learning. And a quick note, at ODE, especially if you're trying to find information about absenteeism, we track regular attenders. And so if you're like, I looked for chronic absenteeism, but just letting you know, we're naming the behavior we want to see, who are our regular attenders and and who's not attending regularly and how can we support that. So again, I go back to encouraging the conditions for students wanting to show up to school on a regular basis. We have our Everyday Matters program that launched with grant and aid dollars a few years ago that were actually kind of phased out intentionally so that districts would take up, the strategies, the professional learning, and all the things that came with Everyday Matters. And in our Everyday Matters program and toolkit, we offer a way a district can do an assessment around their attendance, and when they can kind of comb through their system and see what's working and not working in terms of getting students involved in school. We identify best practice resources for them and so on. And through many of our grants, we also encourage schools to highlight ways they're going to address attendance in their grants. So we have a high school success grant, for example. What I love about the high school success grant, it gives districts and schools resources to pay teachers to collaborate around cohorts of students, to look at their attendance, to go out and decide who's going to go do a home visit, or what kind of activity can we arrange to re-engage these students to get them back involved and on track for school. We have the high school success. We also have student success plans that are culturally responsive. So we have our African American Black student success, our Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, Alaska Native American Indian plan, and so on, where we are leaning in with the communities to identify what is culturally responsive and appropriate in terms of engaging our students. So those are just some of the tools and resources that we have.
Thank you for answering my loaded question with a loaded answer. But yeah, I mean, we can talk about education forever and ever. So we are kind of almost down to the wire. So I have one more topic I would like to touch upon in this very last minute we have, and it's about our teachers. So we heard a lot from this last video about supporting our teachers. Many school districts have bargained or are still in the middle of bargaining this year, and we have seen an increase in workforce challenges. Many teachers feeling burnt out, and some leaving the profession altogether. Can you share some plans that the agency has in addressing the mental health, pay, and workforce to support school districts to recruit, retain, and advance teachers and educational staff? And someone in the question wants to know more, what does that look like for staff of color in Oregon?
Thank you so much for the question. It is no secret that being an educator in our schools today is different. It is challenging, and we are in need of providing our educators with proper supports and resources. So I want to use this opportunity to uplift the Educator Advancement Council that ODE supports. We have Grow Your Own partnerships, and this is a series of grants to districts, tribes, post-secondary, and community organizations that support recruitment and career development for staff, for candidates, community members, and anyone looking to become an educator. We have regional educator networks. Again, we're prioritizing bringing teachers together in these regions. These partners are this is partnership between school districts and ESDs so that we can meet the needs of teachers in that particular area. So we work on retention, recruitment, professional development, social emotional support. And what's really exciting is in 2025, ODE will administer a survey to all education staff. So we have teacher surveys, et cetera, but we are going to be able to offer a statewide survey to all staff to take the temperature of what's working and use that data to inform your work with your colleagues as well. And so when it comes to folks of color, the Grow Your Own pathways, we have teacher and administrative scholarship programs for culturally and linguistically diverse educator candidates pursuing licenses, and multiple measure assessment for licensure, because oftentimes we know different types of assessments can be a barrier. We know that all of them are not culturally responsive, and so we have that Tribal Nations Educator Collaborative, our Educator Equity Report, and our Oregon Education Workforce Survey. So we got a few things going on, trying to go all in, diversifying our workforce. But can I just say that we also need to make sure we create culturally responsive conditions for the adults. I need to be able to show up as me. You need to be able to show up as you, and really contribute your brilliance to your school, your district, wherever you're serving. And we need to provide our educators with tools across the board to do that effectively, so that they want to stay in education.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and as a staff of color, sometimes I often say I leave the best parts of me at the door to make others feel comfortable. So, but yes, thank you. We need to show up our authentic selves in order to support our kids.
Yeah.
So we're at our closing remarks.
Can I just add one
yes,
more piece to that, leaving yourself at the door? You know, in this role, people ask me that question: are you able to be you? And by golly, I'm doing everything that I can to.
Yes. And thank you, because it makes a difference in the legislature. When I see you at the Capitol advocating for our students, the conversation is just so different with you as a director of the agency and having that diverse perspective. So thank you so much. So thank you, Dr. Charlene Williams, for having this important discussion with us this evening, and then to City Club of Portland for hosting and organizing this community forum. It will take each one of us doing our part well to improve the outcomes for students in K-12 education. So I have one last question, and please close us out. Dr. Williams, I would like for you to take this opportunity to close us out, and it's the director of ODE. What do you want us to know moving into 2025, and what is going to be your legacy 5 years from now?
Thank you for going easy on me tonight, Rep. Nguyen. But can we give her some love, because what an advocate and champion for education for day one. Thank you so much. You know, I think my closing remarks, I hope we land on hope in education. It's an exciting time to be in education. Yes, there are challenges, but we have a whole ecosystem of support to help our educators, our students, our parents fulfill our critical mission to take care of ourselves and to serve our students. You have a governor who is listening carefully to your needs and fully supports you, our educators and families. Your state legislators are committed to helping you and are paying close attention to how to provide mental health support, professional development, more resources, professional and curriculum supports. The entire state truly is aligning on foundational educational programs. You think about that early literacy initiative and what's going to happen for our littles. We are changing the trajectory of students' lives. Thank you. Two things can be true. It can be hard to be in education, and what an opportunity we have in front of us. Together, we can hold high expectations with high support. So I'm realistic, I am hopeful, and I am committed to using every resource at our disposal to serve our students. Thank you, City Club, for giving us this opportunity tonight.